they have assessed strategically that they have already defeated you. And that was one of the legitimate arguments between Al-Qaeda and the Muslim Brotherhood about 9/11. Is that Al-Qaeda was too rash, they acted too early, we were not ready, and we did not collapse as they thought. That's a legitimate argument. But just because the Muslim Brotherhood has legitimate grievances with Al-Qaeda does not mean that the Muslim Brotherhood is our ally. Right? Everybody's good with that, right? Don't need to spend much time on that. So let's talk about, I'm sorry? Okay. Let's talk about the Muslim Brotherhood in the United States. And for the next 30 minutes or so, we're going to walk through this. The Muslim Brotherhood came to the United States in the 1950s. They set up a few entities, primarily settling in Indiana, Michigan, and where else? Illinois, Chicago, which would explain why Chicago today is the hub for Hamas in the United States. Why in Indiana you have the largest Muslim Brotherhood entity in North America, the Islamic Society of North America in Plainfield. Middle of nowhere, but for you military guys, middle of nowhere, but right near the highway. I'll let that one sink in. And why in, again, Michigan, I don't think I need to explain, Airborne and Detroit, heavy Muslim Brotherhood influence, heavy jihadi influence there. Now that might help explain to you, because that's where the Muslim Brotherhood settled first in the 50s and 60s. By the late 70s, they were coast to coast. Today, they have thousands of front groups in all 50 states, and we're going to go through those. And the way I'm going to walk into this is by sharing what I mentioned to you right on the offset, is this case, this trial. And it begins with this man, Ismail al-Barasi. And some of you may know this story, and those of you who've heard it before, I'll tell it to you again very briefly. In 2004, after 9/11, in August, Ismail al-Barasi and his family are crossing the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. They're driving. And two Baltimore County cops, just going from point A to point B, observe his wife, who's in full hijab and sitting in the passenger seat, filming the support structures of the bridge. Well, it's post 9/11. As they drive up under the car, they see her pull the camera down. Something's up. They pull him over. Ismail al-Barasi is wanted on a material witness warrant out of Chicago in a Hamas case with this guy, Musa Abu Marzouk, the leader of the Palestine Committee in the United States. Palestine Committee equals Hamas. That is Hamas in the United States. He's the leader of Hamas in the United States. And oh, by the way, he's a designated terrorist because he's the leader of Hamas in the United States. There's the Treasury Department letter. And this piece of evidence entered into trial demonstrates he's not only the leader of the Hamas in the United States, he was the number 3 guy in Hamas internationally. Wow. And of course, the Israelis fired a rocket from a helicopter on that man, and he's no longer with us. So Khalid Mashal is now the leader of Hamas. So, where are we with this? So this guy, who lives in Annandale, Virginia, driving across Chesapeake Bay Bridge, gets pulled over. The cops put handcuffs on him because he's wanted on material witness warrant. The FBI comes out. It's a big show on the bridge. They take him, and subsequent to that, his home in Annandale, Virginia, gets raided by the FBI. In the basement, they find a sub-basement. And in the sub-basement, the archives of the Muslim Brotherhood in North America are discovered. Thousands of strategic documents, of internal communications, of financial records, of photographs, of audio recordings, of videotapes are discovered. Yes, sir?
Where's all that stuff now?
All of that material rests with the FBI. Why? Well, a lot of this, the documents, the evidence discovered in that 2004 raid, were entered into evidence in the largest terrorism financing and Hamas trial in U.S. history. United States versus the Holy Land Foundation for Relief and Development. At the time it was indicted, HLF, Holy Land Foundation, was the largest Islamic charity in the United States. It just happened to be a Hamas entity. Say that again. This is one of those for you military guys. The largest Islamic charity in America was a Hamas front. Interesting. So, in November 2008, HLF and its leadership are convicted of being Hamas. The judge uses the word Hamas, I don't know how many times to emphasize, but the evidence is massive. So I want to go through a few pieces of evidence to show you what the implications of this, because it's huge, to the point that Congresswoman Sue Myrick of North Carolina several years ago asked the Department of Justice to brief every member of Congress on this case. So it's significant. And to date, of course, nobody has briefed Congress on this case. As a matter of fact, they're doing everything to tell you that this case was no big deal. Talk to the Muslim Brotherhood, it's as if this case never existed. And it's just a handful of nuts, got nothing to do with us. Well, let's look at some of the documents. One of the documents found in the Annandale, Virginia raid is this. This is the document, and it's official court translation into English. This is the Muslim Brotherhood strategic document for North America. Dated 1991, discovered in 2004 in August in Annandale, Virginia by the FBI. Written by the number 2 guy in the Palestine Committee, Hamas, in the United States. Approved by the governing bodies of the Muslim Brotherhood in North America. I'm going to argue this is doctrine. Fair? Because it was also entered into evidence in the largest Hamas and terrorism financing trial, and the defense stipulated that it is what they say, or the prosecution said it was, which is the strategic memorandum for the Muslim Brotherhood. Pretty much a dead ringer. We're done with that. So what does it say? This goes back to what I said earlier, their entire strategy is. Understanding the role of the Muslim Brotherhood in North America. The process of settlement is a civilization jihadist process with all the word means. The Ikhwan, the Muslim Brotherhood, must understand their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the hands of the believers so that it is eliminated and God's religion is made victorious over all other religions. Without this level of understanding, we are not up to this challenge and have not prepared ourselves for jihad yet. It's a civilization jihad, a grand jihad, eliminating and destroying Western civilization from within, sabotaging its miserable house by their hands. By whose hands?
Ours.
Our hands. Their entire strategy is to get our leadership to fulfill their strategy for them. I would argue that by getting us to write constitutions that subordinate the constitutions of Afghanistan and Iraq to Sharia, to get the director of the FBI to shut down all training inside the Bureau that talks about this, to get the chairman of the Joint Chiefs to shut down all training in the U.S. military and a complete military review of all training so this discussion is washed out, to shut down investigations about guys that could be potential jihadis, to get religious leaders in the Catholic, Protestant, evangelical, non-denominational, and Jewish world to stand up publicly next to Hamas leaders in the United States and condemn anyone that says anything nasty about this guy standing next to me. I'd say they're pretty much doing a good job. To get the United States to write formal policy at the state, Secretary of State, and presidential level, and go into agreements with the OIC about how we'll make sure that even if we can't criminalize free speech, can't criminalize speech that is offensive to Muslims, we can use good old pressure tactics, as the Secretary of State said, to shut people up. That is civilization jihad by their hands, by our hands. This document also said this, and this is why this is important to understand. We are in a country, we the Muslim Brotherhood are in America, in a country which understands no language other than the language of the organizations, and one which does not respect or give weight to any group without being effective, functional, and strong organizations. And of course the challenge is how to turn these seeds or scattered elements into comprehensive, stable, settled organizations that are connected with our movement and take orders from our guidance. This is why they've created thousands of front groups, because they believe that's how we understand how to interact with them, and I believe they're right. The last page of the strategic document is this, a list of organizations, dated 1991, discovered 2004, a list of our organizations and the organizations of our friends. Imagine if they all march according to one plan, to one plan. Well, this is 20 years old. These organizations still constitute the most prominent Islamic organizations in the United States today. Let me just start at the top. The Islamic Society of North America, who, by the way, as I'll show you in a little bit, whose president sits on the National Security Council, the Department of Homeland Security Advisory Council, advises FBI, CIA, etc., and members of Congress. The Muslim Students Association, the very first national Islamic organization in America. The Muslim Students Association. Let me say this again. The first national Islamic organization in the United States was founded by the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Students Association. The Muslim Students Association is the Muslim Brotherhood with the same objectives. Wage jihad in order to implement Islamic law and reestablish the global Islamic state. The Muslim Students Association. Let's see, where do they have chapters? Georgia Tech, University of Georgia, Georgia Southern, Armstrong, right here in Savannah. Muslim Student Association. Those are points of recruitment for Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood. And they can tell you all day that they're not. That's just not what the facts bear out. That's not true. And as Harry Truman said, well, we can call them fib if you like, but it's a lie. Those are lies, not truths. The North American Islamic Trust, NATE, the bank for the Muslim Brotherhood, the ISNA Fiqh Committee, now the Fiqh Council of North America. They ensure that the Muslim Brotherhood abides by Islamic law in everything they do. The IAP, which was a Hamas front, now you know it as CARE. The leaders of the IAP are now the leaders of CARE. And these others. So we know right now that these organizations, ISNA, IIIT, NATE, Muslim Student Association, the others, these are Muslim Brotherhood fronts. So let's fill in these little blanks here because I want to, because these are important for you to understand. And one of the key pieces you need to understand is that in their strategy, they discuss, in addition to these organizations, they discuss Islamic centers. This is from the Strategic Memorandum. Understanding the role and the nature of work of the Islamic Center in every city which what achieves the goal of the process of settlement. What's the process of settlement? Anybody remember? Let me go ahead and back up here. Process of settlement is civilization jihad. So they're creating Islamic centers. The Muslim Brotherhood is saying in their doctrine that's been approved, that they're abiding by, that their Islamic centers are being created for civilization jihad. Is everybody with me?
Yep.
The center we seek is the one which constitutes the axis of our movement, the perimeter of our circle of work, for our base and our rise, to prepare us and supply our battalions. Muslim Brotherhood Islamic centers are places from which they will launch the jihad. Now, are all Islamic centers in the United States controlled by the Muslim Brotherhood? No. Some are controlled by the nation of Iran, some of the Shia ones, and every state I've looked in has at least a couple of those. But not all Sunni mosques or Islamic centers are controlled by the Muslim Brotherhood, but the vast majority aren't. By vast majority, I mean over 80%. And oh, by the way, we pray there. In their strategic document, the Muslim Brotherhood says, we want our Islamic centers to be like the mosque, the very first mosque founded by Muhammad. What was the first mosque founded by Muhammad? The one in Medina. And what did he use the mosque for?
Military operation.
Al-Qaeda.
Yeah, to be the base. Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda. Why? What